The other thing that occurred to me is that this is an expression of what I call a new brand of fascism that's emerging in Europe. It's relatively new in modern times. It is still political in intent, Mike, but it's linked directly now to religious extremism.
So what issues need to be dealt with to try and stop these kinds of attacks?
Well, I think if you step back from the purely military aspect, if you like, or the policing aspect, I think there's discussion needs to be had about the effect, the bigger impacts of things like globalization, urbanization, all of which are leading to problems with social cohesion in major cities. So we have more and more people living in smaller spaces who feel they have less and less in common. And that gives rise to forms of tribalism. And some of that is negative. People start searching for others who feel as desperate as they do. And I think there's also, Mike, one other thing, and that we need to abandon the idea that political correctness is the default form of political discourse in our country. Churchill showed his generation that fascism isn't made less of a threat just because we talk about it or engage it in debate. We've got to make a stand, be resolute, be defiant about the things that we won't tolerate, and base that stand on proven values and ethics. And one of the things that fascism always does is it says we want to deny freedom of speech to everyone other than ourselves. I don't think actually that the threat of this week was primarily a threat to freedom of expression. It was a threat to human life. And that's a reality already well known to the millions of people in Syria and Iraq who, for months, in some cases years, have faced the imminent threat of death for no other reason than that they have a different worldview to these, I'm calling them neo-fascist groups.
So how does the future look from where you're standing?
Well, I'm very optimistic about the future, always am. I think it's very important, though, that we don't respond to this immediate threat with abject fear. That leads to a loss of perspective. You can't solve problems when you're, frozen in the headlights. We can't, as a society, sink to hatred because that erodes the soul of individuals and societies. And we can't resort to apathy either, which just allows wickedness to go unaddressed or unpunished. I do think we need to be a lot more honest about our discussion on immigration. This, of course, is one of the attractions of radical political groups, this idea of we're the only ones that will talk to you about immigration. I think Europe needs immigration because we face an aging population and our birth rates are falling all the time. But the question isn't should we allow it, the question is how do we better manage it? And that's an issue we need to continue to have a debate about. I don't think that one's going to go away in a hurry.
Mal Fletcher, who's the chair of the think tank 2020 Plus, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed for taking time to be with us this morning.